All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the fiscal year 2023 Fulbright-Hays Seminars Abroad live question and answer session. Through this session tonight, we're really happy to have you here, and through this session tonight, we really hope to provide information and tips to help assist you in completing and submitting the Seminars Abroad application package. So my name is Mark Bladel. I'm one of the program officers here with the Fulbright-Hays Seminars Abroad program at the U.S. Department of Education. This evening, I'm joined by my colleague Matthew Robinson, who is on the call as well as Amy Barsanti. Amy is an elementary school teacher from North Carolina who participated in the Seminars Abroad program to Iceland in summer 2021, and she's joining us today to share her experience applying for the program. So as we begin this, so for today's question and answer session, we do have two different ways that you can ask a question and participate. So we invite you to use the Teams chat function to type your question in the chat box. Matthew and I will be monitoring this throughout the session. If you are comfortable, you can also click on the raise hand button and someone from our team will call on you. Please be sure to unmute yourself. After you have asked your question, please click on the hand button again to lower your hand. If you have any questions tonight that are specific to your own situation, or if you think of one after today's session, you can always email us at seminarsabroad@ed.gov. Okay, before we open it up to your questions, we wanted to briefly outline the application process, as well as provide some quick reminders and tips about this process. Further information can be found on our technical assistance webinar, which is found on YouTube. So in order to begin an applicant must register first in the G5 system at www.g5.gov. Applicants should be certain that they meet the personal and professional eligibility requirements. This includes being a U.S. citizen or permanent resident, holding a bachelor's degree, and having a total of at least 3 years of full-time professional experience by the time of departure. Full eligibility requirements can be found in our application package. Applicants will also need to submit the following as part of their application. So all relevant forms in G5, a curriculum vitae, 3 narrative responses, 2 professional letters of reference, with one being from a current supervisor, and a document that outlines which competitive preference priorities you are applying for, if applicable. Now, for the letters of reference, please note that referees must complete the letters before the applicant can submit their portion of the application. If you have any questions or concerns about whether letters have been properly submitted, the applicant should contact the G5 help desk, and it's strongly suggested not to wait until the last day. And finally, as a reminder, completed applications must be submitted by February 9th, 2023. We are unable to accept late applications. Now, for fiscal year 2023, we have some updates to our application process that we would like to highlight. First, educators may now qualify for more than one competitive preference priority, and for this year's competition, we have 4 priorities. The first priority includes K-12 teachers or administrators who work at schools that are identified as Title I schools. The second category includes faculty members who teach at minority-serving institutions. The third category includes faculty members who teach at community colleges. And finally, the last category awards 3 points to new applicants. In order to receive competitive preference priority points, the applicant must upload a single document indicating which competitive preference priority or priorities they qualify for. In the statement, we ask that you please identify the category or categories you are applying for and briefly explain how and why you or your institution is eligible. We will verify each statement after the closing date during the application pre-screening process. In addition to these changes, we are also inviting educators from the sciences, technology, engineering, mathematics, and computer sciences to apply. In their application, they must demonstrate how their proposed curriculum projects integrate seminar content in the arts, humanities, or social sciences into their own work. We also wanted to share some tips for the project plan and implementation essays. Applicants should explain how they plan to incorporate the seminar experience into their professional work to enhance their audience's international and intercultural understanding. Strong essays will clearly explain the intended activities and how they will be implemented, as well as the impact these activities will have on their target audience. Now, please make sure that the essay addresses all the required sub-criteria. One common weakness that we see is when applicants do not specifically explain what activities they intend to implement or what the intended impact would be for these activities. Please make sure to be specific and to give concrete explanations and examples when you can. Another common stumbling block we have noticed is that applicants sometimes fail to specify how they will assess their project's implementation. We encourage applicants to review formative and summative assessment. There are numerous resources available on this topic online or through your own institution and/or district, and we included one here from Yale University as an example. Now, finally, before I turn it over to Amy to talk a little bit about her experience applying for the Seminars Abroad program, we wanted to leave you with some additional resources, and we'll keep this slide up for the remainder of the session. So the IFLE program officers for the Seminars Abroad program are myself, Mark Bladel, as well as Matthew Robinson. We can be contacted at at ed.gov. Applicants can find the full application package on the Department of Education's website at www.ed.gov. The full link to the IFLE webpage is listed above. Included on that website is an additional FAQ for the Seminars Abroad program. Applicants can find updates and further promotional information via Twitter. We are at GoGlobalEd, and video resources can be found on our YouTube page. Finally, all applications must be submitted through G5 at www.g5.gov, and applications will be due February 9th, 2023. So thank you again to all of you for joining us, and we really look forward to receiving and reviewing your applications. It's now my pleasure to introduce Amy Barsanti, who will talk about her experience applying to the Fulbright-Hays seminar to Iceland.
Hi. I only have 2 minutes, so bear with me. First of all, I encourage you to apply. Try not to be intimidated by the Fulbright and Department of Education piece. I am an elementary school teacher in rural North Carolina, and I never imagined that it was in my reach, but it was, COVID. And so I wrote it, and I found that the application process itself was wonderful in terms of reflection and self-evaluation, helping me think about my why, and then helping me think about my what I would do with it. And please know that your final project, what you propose, may be very different from what you finally decide on as your curriculum project, and that's okay. In my district, I also got CEUs just for applying. So that may be another factor. You get feedback, you get really specific feedback, so that even if you are not successful the first time that you apply, you know exactly what to do to be successful the next time. The next point for me is the benefit to the students. Especially in this day and age, our students need to know people who have experienced other cultures and other places firsthand, to get some information, not without bias, because there's always going to be bias, but without intentional media bias, that you can bring your own celebration of a different culture and a different place back to your students in a way that makes it so meaningful for them and makes them want to pursue more. My tips are: try to enjoy it, the application process. Celebrate why you are doing it, why you want to pursue it, and what you might do with it when you get it. That part of the process was actually really good for me. It doesn't matter that I live in the country and I teach second graders, and my work is still important. Don't be intimidated if you are a relatively inexperienced teacher, or shall we say a veteran teacher, your experience and your work is valuable and valued. I had a really good time with my application process of involving my students. So that might be a fun thing for you to do with it. Like was said before, leave plenty of time for your people to get their letters and attestations filled out. And just do it. It's worth it. The application process is wonderful, and the support is terrific. You can call Matt on the bat phone. He will help you out anytime. And that's all I have. I think I did it.
Thank you, Amy. No, thank you so much. At this point, we would like to open it up to any questions that you folks might have about the application process or about the seminar's experience in general. As a reminder, you can raise your hand or you can put them in the chat, and we would be happy to read them aloud. So we have our first question, and I believe that this is for Amy. Sonia asked, what was your takeaway? What was, and project?
My project started out to be assembling culture kits for my students to do hands-on inquiry-based social studies. I'm very interested in integrating the soft sciences in STEM. So I like for students to be able to handle artifacts. In the course of my work in Iceland, I realized that that's just not replicable. So there had to be a digital version of that. So and it's actually still evolving. There was a presentation that had links to all the different aspects. And my takeaways are just mind-blowing still. The sensitivity to gender equity and healthcare, and plus, I mean, the natural beauty was amazing. And you really I had the support I did all I hiked on that glacier, and, it was challenging and exciting. The people were so welcoming. I had no frame of reference for it. But there's minutia, but I won't do that. I won't do that. They don't have bumblebees, y'all. Anyway, they import bees to pollinate, and the roads don't freeze because of the thermal energy. So I learned a lot about the science piece that I really didn't. I was primarily interested in the culture piece, but I learned a lot about the science as well. The geology, the geography is amazing.
Excellent. Thank you. Christopher, I believe you have your hand raised and have a question.
Hi, good evening. So my question is, I saw that for the priority preference, one of the things was mentioned was the new applicants. And for each of these, you need to have proof for all of those priority preferences. Like there has to be some uploaded documentation in the application process.
So this year will be slightly different than previous years with competitive preference priorities. We're just asking you to upload a single document. And what we need you to do in that document is just identify which priority or priorities you're going for. And if you could just briefly explain why you are eligible for that priority, just using prose. And so what we can do during the pre-screening of applications is we'll verify each of the statements you provide. So an example of a statement you could provide is, I'm eligible as a new applicant because I've never received a Fulbright-Hays grant in the past. Or I'm eligible to get the competitive preference points for the MSI because I work at a community college that's an MSI. If you provide us that information, then we will be able to verify that you're indeed eligible for those points.
And that could be done in like a Word document or something like that. And
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Great. And I saw that the application closes on the 9th of February. What's the timeline like as far as, I know it takes time to review all the applications. When would applicants expect to hear about getting accepted or not?
We aim to get results back to everybody in April, so early spring.
Okay.
We tend to get and we notify all applicants whether they're accepted or not, so that you'll get feedback on the application you provided at that time, and everyone hears from us all at the same time.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a few more questions coming up in the chat. So one is, I am a university faculty member. So for the reference from a colleague, should this be someone at my institution, or could it be from a colleague who knows my work but is at another institution?
Yes, that can be a professional college from a different institution. We don't have a restriction on that. Yeah, it can be a colleague from another institution.
Excellent. So the next question is, when will the trip dates be determined and announced? So those trip dates will be determined and communicated out to folks around the time that we send out the acceptances as well. Okay, so we're aiming for mostly in July. Okay, so the next question is, can you speak a little bit more to what the orientation entails, where it will be, what we do, / is a part of the trip duration listed?
So generally, it is part of the trip duration that we list. It is a short orientation, which will typically just be a day or two. And so what we do is we get everybody together, because participants typically come from all across the country. So we get everybody in one place. It will typically be, we can provide details later on about exactly which institution it will be hosted at, in which city, and so forth, and let you know once you're selected as a participant. You'll get those details right away, and the Fulbright commissions who run the seminars will be in touch with everybody and guiding them through that process of getting ready for the orientation as well as for the trip in general.
Thank you.
Matt, would you mind if I added something? This is Gary.
Of course.
Yes. So hi, everyone. My name is Gary Thomas, and I'm the director of the Fulbright-Hays Overseas Programs. And I just wanted to add that in addition to going to the live orientation, we will more than likely arrange for you to meet your colleagues well ahead of the time that you depart to your host country. You'll be more than likely meeting with your colleagues virtually, so you'll have a lot of information about what to expect, what to pack, what those 4-week time period will look like. So I just wanted to add that real quick.
Thank you, Gary. So the next question is, I attended a Fulbright-Hays group project abroad in India this summer. May I still apply for the Argentina-Brazil program? Yes, you may. So thank you for asking that. The second part to your question is, when will the solid dates come out? As we stated, those should be announced in April when we send out the acceptances as well.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'll just add that the only consideration you might have in that situation, Ron, is that since you attended a group project abroad, which is a Fulbright-Hays program, you wouldn't be eligible for the new applicant competitive preference points, but you're absolutely welcome to apply.
Thank you, Matthew. So the next question is, would it be possible to receive feedback on our essays prior to submission from a seminar's representative?
And unfortunately, we won't be able to do that. But we can promise that you will get detailed feedback from our external reviewers once the competition is over. That's all we can promise, unfortunately.
All right. So we have 2 questions related to the number of applicants. So how many applicants typically apply, and is there more response from elementary school or high school teachers / instructors?
This varies widely year to year, so it's very hard to put a number on this of what to expect. I think the thing that you might want to keep in mind is that it is a competitive process. We always get strong applications every year. But that said, like Amy mentioned in her remarks, it's possible to get. It's not like you have to get 100% in order to go on the seminar. Of course, you have to put together a strong application, and it takes preparation. and you have to get all of the elements in the application and submitted to be competitive usually. But maybe that's what I can say about that.
Thank you, Matt. The next question, Amy might be able to assist with this one. So regarding the project plan and implementation, what suggestions do you have for describing assessments and/or activities if we also recognize that our project proposal in the application process may differ dramatically from what we ultimately do after the seminar?
Well, I think that one of the things is I'm an overthinker, and I tend to think, oh, what are they looking for? What do they want me to say? But based on the feedback that I got that was really positive, it was very specific to my school and my district. I think like any other granting situation, you really need to have measurable objectives. Whether it's surveys, there has to be some kind of numerical component. And I feel also like that a ripple effect is important. It's important in your classroom, but it's also important if it can be district-wide or on the website, or then submitted to be vetted in other areas, that it will be part of a bigger picture. And I know that that's not really specific, but be authentic to what you want to accomplish based on why you're doing it, would be my best advice.
I think that's good advice that Amy provided. I'll just add to that when Amy mentions that her project changed over the course of doing the seminar, keep in mind that you're also collaborating with your group of participants. There's 16 participants going on each seminar, and that's a good thing, obviously. And also, as Amy mentioned, you learn things along the way, things that you didn't expect to learn. And so, but it's still good to start out with a good specific plan, which is what reviewers are looking for when they're rating these essays, right? And so I think that's why what she's saying is good advice, to make it specific and just assume it's not going to change. Of course, later on, if it does change, you can evolve along with those changes provided by the group and with the people you interact with abroad and so forth.
And if I could just add, for reasons to apply, I'm still collaborating with the people I was with in Iceland. And that piece is amazing. They will be your colleagues and your friends for life.
Fantastic.
Amy, didn't your colleagues come and visit you in your classroom?
Yes, in Little Dinky, North Carolina. It's really like Mayberry. One from Philadelphia and one from Washington State. They were traveling and they came to stay with me and then visited in my classroom and talked about Icelandic nursery rhymes and how that's related to the culture. And one of them taught my students that from here on in, instead of saying ew, say, that's interesting, tell me more. And I have students who are still doing that now. But yes, the cohort bond is important and lasting.
Fantastic. So while we're with you, Amy, could you talk to us a little bit about what you found to be the most difficult part of the application process?
My own brain. I just kept thinking, this can't be right. This can't be good enough. I'm not going to submit it. I'm going to get to the airport and they're going to realize I'm old and they're going to send me away. So, but I think that our own perfectionism as educators, our hesitance to brag about what we do that's good because we just take for granted that that's what we do. Don't be afraid to toot your own horn. That was hard for me. And just feeling like I might not be worthy of such an honor. Find your voice, figure out why you're doing it, and then be true to that and honor that, and you're bound to be successful.
Excellent. Thank you.
I think
Um,
what is also Scary Thomas again. I think also what is helpful is if you read the application in its entirety to make sure that this is going to be a really good fit for you and that you're going to be able to meet all the criteria. And it's also important to, particularly on the essay questions, to address every factor that the application is asking of you, because that's where you can get points deducted. So it's really important to read the application in its entirety, and in the essay questions, make sure you address every part of the question.
Thank you, Gary. Ludmila, do you have your hand up?
Yes, I do. Since you mentioned good feed, I work at two schools. Actually, I work at the middle and the high school, and I hold one full-time position. And my bigger load is at the high school, but middle school is my home school. A few years ago, the high school was my home school. It's just the change that was made a few years ago. And I want to be transparent about that. And I am more interested in a program in Argentina and Brazil. So how should I explain that, or how specific should I be about my work schedule? Or should there be a problem?
You're free to email us more specifically at seminarsabroad@ed.gov, and let us know a little bit more about your situation. But essentially, as just general advice about this, we look at the CV to see, where your position is and at what level, because we want to make sure the level matches the seminar that you're applying for, right? And you're also free if you have two jobs. We mentioned something about the 50% rule, where if people have full-time work spread across more than one institution or position, that they can give us information about both positions. And it's not required, but you could give us the number of, for example, weekly hours you spend in each position, so that it's easy for reviewers to get an idea, where are you spending more time, or what does your full-time job look like in terms of being divided up. But if you have a more specific question about your specific case, you can give us an email and we'll try to give you a more specific answer.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So we have two questions that popped up regarding length of application materials. So one was about college faculty members. Are they still bound by the 3-page CV because their CVs tend to be a little bit longer? And kind of dovetailing off of that, would applicants be penalized if essays exceed the 2-page double-space suggested length?
Okay. I think my answer to these questions are that these are good guidelines, the length. We suggest that they're no longer than 3 pages double-spaced. And so if you give us longer than those, or much shorter, for example, reviewers notice that. And they might see it as a reflection of the quality. If you have 2 lines longer than 3 pages, is that going to be a problem? Not necessarily. In fact, this is a good opportunity for me to mention that it's important that you take a look, as Gary mentioned, at the whole application. And part of the application package is the technical review form that the reviewers use to rate your application. And so you can see exactly what they're giving points on. And the idea for the length requirements is a little less to be a stickler about how many words, for example, and more about giving you the scope of what you're trying to provide the reviewer, so that we get a consistent thing that can be comparable across applications, if that makes sense for the reviewers. But the reviewers score very specific items in each essay, for example, and you can see what those are in the technical review form. You can look at each item that they're looking for and make sure to hit it in your essay.
Thank you. So the next question is about budget. So how about budget? Is the budget a part of the application that is due on February 9th? If there is a budget application, where do I find it? The good news is that there is no budget application, nor nothing that you need to do. These programs are fully funded. Now there are some, when we break this down, I believe on our website as well as on the YouTube technical assistance webinar, some out-of-pocket expenses that you can anticipate as part of this program. Part of that does include a little bit for the pre-departure orientation, passport, inoculations, etc. So that breakdown can be found online, but you don't need to submit a budget as part of this, again, because on this study abroad opportunity, it will be fully funded. Okay.
Well, except for the $700 fee that each participant will require to pay to cover costs domestically, meaning
Correct.
flying you to your orientation site.
Correct. Thank you, Gary.
You're welcome.
So I believe this question, Amy, you might be able to assist with this. So would you have any advice for teachers of Spanish or Portuguese who are in the process of applying to the Argentina and Brazil seminar? Or
No.
we'd be happy to assist.
I got nothing. Yeah, I don't know about the specifics of that seminar. I wouldn't think it would be that different, though. Figure out what your students need, what you bring to the table, and how best to integrate those ideas. I think that's kind of the same for any of them, but I haven't looked at the Argentina-Brazil one, so I don't know if there are other connections that could be made.
Yeah, within the application package, there is a full description of or a one-page description of the Argentina and Brazil seminar for our secondary educators, and it talks a little bit about some of the topics that are being covered, with a particular focus, on the history and its influence, the influence of immigration and migration within Argentina and Brazil, and its influence on contemporary education policy. So there's a number of different topics that are kind of spelled out within that description. So I think that could be a really great jumping off point for you as you think about your own local educational context within your Spanish and or Portuguese classroom, and ways that you might be able to kind of implement some of these themes into your current work. So I would recommend that you kind of start there and maybe do some research as well into any of these topics that you think might be beneficial to your students. Next, Colleen, I see you have your hand raised. We'll go to you.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I was just wondering, okay, I had a question about, I have a colleague that we work together in different roles at a school, and we've just been kind of brainstorming and talking about like standalone projects, but if there would be any value in, as part of our application process, discussing the potential of working together afterwards to like have a further reach at our school and district. Is that something that, do you have any experience or any recommendation on whether that's worth including or like keeping separate? Just any feedback there would be helpful.
Sure. So, of course, you have to apply as an individual, right? So if you were both planning to go, that would be a separate issue. You can only really speak to what you would do as an individual for your application, right? Because you can't know whether both people would get to go. But to more directly answer your question about working together with a colleague as a result of coming back, that's something that would be captured under outreach activities. But for every person who goes on a seminar, we do require that they not only implement the curriculum project they develop, but also work on outreach activities. And that's a great example of an outreach activity, working with colleagues to kind of distribute the dissemination further, or working with other teacher colleagues at other institutions, or giving workshops or other sorts of presentations. These are all kinds of good outreach activities that almost any participant would be able to do in some form.
Excellent. Excuse me. So the next question asks, the application states preference will be given to qualified candidates who have not had substantial recent experience abroad, especially in the country to which they're applying. Does that mean we are penalized for having more extensive travel experience?
No, not penalized. Of course, if you are a new applicant to the program and haven't had a Fulbright-Hays experience, for example, you do get competitive preference points. So in that sense, if you're a person who has more experience abroad, maybe was a previous Fulbright of some kind, you won't be able to get those preference points, and in that way, you won't get as high of a score as someone who had never had those experiences. But I encourage you to take a look at that technical review form on the application that specifies exactly what you get points for, because you will be able to find out where you will and won't be able to get points, and essentially there isn't a penalty for that. It's more that we encourage people who don't have these experiences to apply, and we want to give them the opportunity. And of course, if you are an experienced educator and you have a really good idea for how to use one of these seminars in your educational setting, we encourage you to go for it too.
That's good feedback, Mac. What I would also add is that folks that we've had several folks that applied that didn't receive any extra points. So don't let that be a hindrance or something that would discourage you. So.
Excellent. So the next question asks for just some clarification on the travel expenses that are covered by the Fulbright-Hays program.
So the travel expenses that are covered under the budget that you get by winning the award include things like your airfare, your hotel, the meals. As we talked about a little earlier, the copay that you provide is $750, and that mostly covers the pre-departure orientation costs that you participate in before you head out to the seminar destination for 4 weeks. Some of the examples of things that you would have to spend your own money on include things like gifts, extra food, or if you're doing spending money on other items that are not part of the itinerary. For example, sometimes during the trip, there will be periods of time where you have a little bit of spare time to work on your own project, for example, and not doing a group activity. And during that, you might opt to go buy a coffee or a meal or something like that. Or to buy resources in the host country that you plan to use back in your home educational setting. And of course, those would be on your own time. I think that covers it generally, but
Amy, did you have anything you wanted to add? I saw you smiling.
Alcohol. They're
yeah,
not
I knew.
Drinks, people. No, and it sometimes it depends on where you are. If tipping is or is not appropriate, we didn't run into that issue. The meals together were phenomenal, and I did not at any point feel like I had to spend any extra money on food.
Excellent. So the next question is, if we wish to remain in the destination of our program after the end dates, is it possible to still receive funding for a return flight?
Okay, good question. And we do get this question a lot. And our answer to this is that we require participants to travel to and from the destination together with their group cohort. And there are a couple of reasons for that, but essentially we need everybody to go to the orientation together first and then travel together to the host country and then travel back from the host country. And maybe that's all I'll say about that. If you have further questions about that, you can feel free to reach out to us, but we're pretty strict about that.
Thank you. Do participants from all Fulbright programs ever come together to share their experiences, or is it more focused on each place as its own experience?
So each of the 3 seminars this year will kind of be their own experience. You'll get to know your cohort well and go to the destination together and come back together. That said, you will have likely some interaction with people from other Fulbright programs when you're in the host country, because the Fulbright commissions who run the programs also manage the other kinds of Fulbright scholars and educators and so forth that come to that host country, and you'll likely get chances to interact with those scholars. Now, in terms of interacting with other Fulbright-Hays scholars from other programs, those will be sort of added events maybe in the future, but not typically part of the seminar experience over the summer.
Thank you. So the next question is, I realize you don't have exact dates, but if it says July, is it possible it would start as early as late June, or is it definitely at least a July 1 or later start?
Difficult for us to say, and it's not that we are resistant to being forthcoming with the dates. It's that the Fulbright commissions actually have to make bookings once they receive the money, and it's not something that we have the information available to tell you right now, to be frank about it. And as soon as we know and we have participants selected, we try to be as forthcoming as we can with when the dates are going to be to help everybody prepare. But if we did say July, 4 weeks in July, for example, I think a lot of our seminars say this year, those are really our best guesses that probably it's going to start in the first week of July and before the end of July. That's our best guess right now after talking with the host commission, who is going to plan and implement the seminar.
Thank you. Is a question is, is a new applicant someone who has never applied, or someone who has applied and not received the grant?
That's a good question. I'm glad you asked that. So a new applicant is somebody who's never been awarded a Fulbright-Hays grant, or a Fulbright grant, right? So if you've applied to seminars 5 times, let's say, just as an example, but you haven't had one of these awards, you haven't traveled before on it, you can still apply for the competitive preference points for a new applicant this year too.
Thank you. Is there any language acquisition or training as part of the program?
So there isn't a language acquisition requirement per se, like some other programs have. That said, a lot of the time, seminars do provide you with some opportunities to learn the host language, and probably to practice it out a bit, because you'll get to have a chance to walk around in the host country once in a while and try to interact with people, right? And so that's obviously a great opportunity to learn some language. So it's I guess obviously not one of the priorities of the program in terms of, when you compare it to curriculum development and developing outreach activities and making linkages with your colleagues from the US and also abroad. However, some people take an interest in this, and there will be some opportunity to do that, I would say, while you're abroad.
Thank you. And is there a list of past projects anywhere?
Yes, I think that we have some of that information on our website under awards. There's a tab called awards, and you can see where past seminars have gone. Actually, it's a long running program that runs back 50, 60 years. So we've had seminars to practically every Fulbright country in the world, I suppose, by this point. But every summer we try to go to different places and to get some variety, geographically and also topically. So yeah, every year we'll try to do something new.
Is the question though about past curriculum projects?
Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, I bet that is what the person meant. We don't have a list of those. There are some, you can look at the IRIS website, which is the International Resource and Information System. I don't think we have that link up here. We can pop it in the chat though. This is the site where participants in the program, thank you, Mark. Mark has put it in the chat there. It's iris.ed.gov. The public facing side of that, you may be able to look at what some past projects were. That's the reporting website where participants, once you get back from a seminar, will upload your final report as well as your curriculum project. Another place that we have is the OER Commons site that we have. And that's something we can probably also get into the chat at some point. This is the site that we encourage past participants to. It's an open source website where past participants can upload their projects for public use. The link is in the chat for that as well. There are even participants who have their projects uploaded in academia.edu that you could search for. This is I'll be honest, this is something that we are also working toward as a team, that we do want to get, especially some of the stellar projects, we want to get them out there. And so we are working on that. But at the moment, these are where they're housed.
Thank you. Are there any additional, I don't see any additional ones in the chat, but does anyone have any additional questions at this point? Katie, you have your hand raised.
Hi, I have a question. Through the national boards process, they're really specific about basically just wondering, given that it's very important to the question in the essays, should each section of the question, how specific do I need to be, or
Katie, unfortunately, I believe we had some issues hearing you. Would it be possible for you to type this out into the chat, and we'll wait a moment? Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Thank you. While we wait for Katie, are there any further questions at this point?
We have just a shout out to Jennifer, just to acknowledge. She says, thank you. We are tuned in as a group here, and some attendees have previously applied while others are newbies. So thank you for the acknowledgement, Jennifer.
Yes, thank you. Glad you had a group there. So there is a question. What is the schedule like while you were on the trip?
Well, go ahead, Amy. Do you want to take this one?
Go for it.
For me, it was a great balance. We had lectures, and then we were out in the field with the very people who explained it to us. We had a lot of time to work on our curriculum projects with the experts right there in the hotel or wherever we were with us. They were very mindful of balance. You know, we had time off, we had time that was very active. In Iceland, we were in Reykjavik, and then we did the whole ring road. Yeah, so it was active, but there was a really good balance.
And I think all of the seminars try to reach that balance. It will be 4 weeks of packed activities, right? But at the same time, you get to experience cultural things as well as academic.
Okay. So we have a question. If I have a specific question about the Mexico USA program for post-secondary educators, who should I email contact or /contact? You can always email us at seminarsabroad@ed.gov. We are happy to help and assist in any way that we can. And we're also in close contact with the Fulbright commissions that are helping to implement these programs. So if there's something that we don't know, we can always reach out to them to gain clarification is there. So, we're really happy to be that first step for you. Katie, do you have your hand raised again? Or was it still up?
I tried to write my question in the chat because I have internet.
Mm. So I heard the part where you were unable to put it into the chat, but I wasn't really able to hear much else. So I'm sorry, Katie. But again, you can also email us at seminarsabroad@ed.gov with your question. I'm sorry that we're unable to hear you right now, but we will certainly be able to address it via email. Okay.
Too, because I think Katie said something about national board certification, and I might be able to help with that because the Fulbright was part of my maintenance of certification that I was successful in this year.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you, Amy. Excuse me. The next question is, I realize that the seminars are not designed for second language acquisition, but would it be possible for participants to stay with a host family?
So while seminar participants are abroad, the Fulbright Commission makes the arrangements for all of the accommodations, and typically they will have all participants in the same kind of accommodation at the same time. So it's unlikely that you'd be able to live with a host family while others don't. It's something that the Fulbright Commission has to arrange for the whole group. So I wouldn't expect that would be possible. Just to be fair about the expectations.
Excellent. And this question is, will this recording be available later? Yes, we are hoping to upload it to our IFLE YouTube. The link is on the screen that you should see at globaled-IFLE. Okay, so that should be posted hopefully within the next couple of days or week. Okay. Thank you, Carla. Any additional questions at this time? Oh, here's one. Thank you, Katie. Is it recommended to specifically include the questions within our essays? For example, should I copy the language from the question within my essay to ensure that assessors clearly see that each of the questions are addressed?
Okay, to answer this question, if I interpret what you're saying correctly, I think you might be talking about, for example, for each essay, there are sort of sub-criteria that the evaluators will be looking for that I mentioned before. I don't know that you want to put each sub-criteria and then give an answer. What I've seen successful applicants do in the past more often is weave it all together in a single essay. And just make sure to hit those points. Often you're hitting more than one sub-criterion at the same time when you're talking about something anyhow. And 3 pages is double spaced. It can be a challenge to fit everything together on. So essentially my advice is to be sure to title the essay that you're going to upload as, for example, Essay 1 Demonstrated Need, or Essay 2 your project plan, or whatever it is, so that it's clear that the essay you've uploaded is for the right criterion, and then just try to hit all of the sub-criterion within your 3-page essay.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, we'll give it a moment to see if there's any additional questions that pop up. Stephen says, thank you. No, thank you for attending. We really appreciate your participation tonight. Glad that you found it informative. There's a thank you for Amy. Yes, thank you so much, Amy, for joining us. You've been fabulous. All right. Well, thank you everyone so much for joining us tonight. We do hope that you found this informative, and we really do look forward to reviewing and receiving your applications. As a final reminder, if you have any additional questions after tonight, please feel free to reach out to our team at seminarsabroad at ed.gov. We are here to assist you and to help you through this opportunity or through this application. So we look forward to hearing from you. And thank you again.